setting new standards in podcast excellence. You have joined the WBT, fully focused on business and taxes. Here is your host, Michael Lodge.
And welcome to the WBT. This is Mike Lodge. I'm glad that you are here. I hope everyone had a great weekend. I tell you, here in Palm Beach, we had a storm. Now, it was built up by the weather forecasters and weathermen and weatherwomen to be a mega storm. However, what it turned out to be was really simple. It wasn't even a storm. I think we had 2 hours of rain and wind, and then we had a little bit of wind the rest of the weekend. Hardly very much. Didn't do any damage. And then today, on Monday, beautiful blue sky, sunshine. I love it, love it, love it, love it. Our conversation today is going to be about us, you and me, because we have been affected in some way, or one of our family members or associates have been affected by this pandemic. And this is all over the world. So those of you who are listening to me in Dubai and in India, in Philippines, wherever you may be listening to me, Thailand, Taiwan, China, I want you to know that you're not the only one out there that's having a financial problem. Or maybe you're even having a mental stress problem. It's the same around this world. It has affected everybody in some way. So the question is, what do we do? How do we sit down and think about this problem that we are facing? In fact, it can be hard to know even where to start. So you have to start with what you do know. The first thing to do is to figure out how this pandemic has impacted your family situation or your personal situation. Initial questions may be fairly obvious. Did someone in your family lose their job, or are they in danger of losing it, or did somebody take a salary cut? And I know a lot of you out there in foreign countries, especially in Dubai, I have been talking to a lot of people in Dubai who have taken 50% salary cuts. And sometimes they are even afraid that they're not going to get paid. Because some of the some of the companies are financially weak at the moment when not enough revenue is coming in. We can understand that. It's not to point fingers at anybody because no one is a bad guy here. It's that this pandemic has shut down businesses, and one business shuts down, then it shuts down another and another and another, and the money trickles in. It's no longer flowing in, it's trickling in, dollar by dollar. So as we look at and we assess or reassess our situation, this could affect how much you want to save in your emergency fund. And hopefully you guys are building an emergency fund. And you also have to continue contributing to your retirement, both of which maybe we'll get into later if I have time. Thus, we have to go back to basics. Determine what your monthly budget is and how it might have changed as your life continues on in this pandemic. That's one of the things that you have to do. You have to make sure that you have set yourself a budget, that you've put your contingency monies away just in case something happens, what we call an emergency fund, and that you spend your money wisely. So that means that you're going to have to reevaluate your priorities. There's so much to think about, but figuring out what your expenses need to remain a priority and what should be shifted is key to not getting overwhelmed. And under this pandemic, I know that a lot of you have become overwhelmed. It's not a good feeling. I know. Even myself as a business, I'm counting the dollars as they come in, concerned with what's happening. But I have my contingency fund set up, and I'm slowly getting back to normal, getting more mediation and consulting assignments. So there's always information overload around the personal finances. You are getting bombarded from all sorts of different sides. So you have to know what your priorities are. What are the things that you need to meet every single month in order to survive, in order to live, in order to get through this pandemic? You have to look at it. You have to know what is allowable for you to spend and what isn't allowable. Maybe there's not going to be any fancy foods for a while until you're able to build back up your financial situation. Figure out what your core values are and use the top 3 to help guide your decision-making process. A goals-based approach will eliminate a lot of the noise that's being thrown at you at the moment. Take care of your emergency fund. I'm going to stress this very importantly. Take care of your emergency fund. While a typical emergency fund might cover your expenses for 3 to 6 months, I'm encouraging you to bump that up to 9 to 12 months if possible. If you're going back to your work now, you're meeting all of your obligations, I want you to really focus on an emergency fund so that it's covering you up to 9 to 12 months if possible. Because we don't know what pandemic is coming down the road and how it's going to affect us. So we have to be prepared. You want to make sure you have enough cash, of a cash cushion to do a thorough search if you lose your current job. If you have a cushion that's a year, you're not going to take the first job that comes across your plate. But you have a little bit of time to think about it. Since you've reassessed your priorities, you might have more money to pour into the fund than you thought. In other words, when you set your priorities, when you looked at your priorities, you said, okay, do I need Netflix? Do I need Hulu? Do I need Disney? Do I need all of these things that start to add up after a while? Do I need cable? Do I need a full set of cable? So you start looking at your priorities. Do I really need to be making payments on that app every single month? Maybe I can do it myself now. So look at your priorities, your spending priorities. And there's a lot of things that you can cut. I know I did the same thing. I went through and I began thinking, what do I really need to keep my business going? Well, I had a full online PBX system for my phone system for my business. It was costing me $200-$300 a month. I said, well, I can get rid of that and go to a lower model, which I did. So now I'm spending $25 a month. I got rid of my fancy thing in my PBX system where I could take in emails. That got me down to lower. I mean, not emails, but faxes. Well, that got my expenses down even lower because I went to eFax. And so I just started picking away at the things that I really needed to keep and things that I could get rid of. I saved a whole bunch of money. And I was able to survive because I set my priorities. I knew I had to meet my housing payment. I knew I had to meet my utilities, and I had to use my food, and I had to make sure that my car and my insurance was up to date. Those are the 4 items that were the high priorities on my list. Everything else was downsized until I got it into a manageable situation. So the most important thing is to look at your priorities. What are your priorities that you need to have, and those things that you don't need to have anymore? Maybe you're buying meals that are coming in. Learn how to prepare it. It's a lot cheaper. I cook all of my food now. Very seldom do I go out. I mean, restaurants are beginning to open up here. I've enjoyed them on certain occasions when I felt I just needed to get away from my office or from my home or from my dogs who bug me all day long. So you set your priorities. A lot of people, until they've sat down and looked at how much they spend, they don't know how much they're spending or where the money is going. That's why I have pushed this and pushed it and pushed it. Sit down, and do a budget. Show how much you're going out, how much is coming in, how much is going out. I always get this remarks from my business clients, and they say, "I don't understand. I seem to be losing money." I said, "No. The problem is that your expenses are the same, but you haven't focused on the revenue coming in. What have you done to focus on raising that revenue? If you can't raise the revenue, then what do you have to do? You got to start cutting your expenses. And if you're in a pandemic, you might be in a situation where you cannot get your revenues up. You can't get your salaries up. You can't get your consulting fees up because there's nothing out there at the moment, or it's very slow. If you don't look at your financial priorities and what you need and what you don't need, you're going to be in a big hurt because you haven't taken responsibility of your financial situation under a pandemic. And we don't know how long this pandemic is going to last because it seems to be political mostly. And we need to be aware that some of these jobs are going to go away. And we're going to have to rely on something else. Either you create your own business, or you create your own consulting, or you're cleaning houses. I don't care what it is that you're going to do. But there always needs to be an alternative income source. Every family should have, or individual should have, an alternative income source. And that means that you're trained at something else that you can do in case something happens with the job that you have currently. What do you have as a backup that you can do very well and make money at it? So I'm telling all of you, get your affairs in order. Part of planning for uncertainty is planning for anything that could happen to you. So you should make sure that you have certain estate planning documents completed, a will which will make sure your money in other possessions will be passed down according to your wishes to the people that you want to go to, the organizations you want your assets to go to, and identify an executor who will control your assets throughout the process, pay final expenses and debts, and file an estate tax return, everything like that. Next, identify a healthcare proxy who can make medical decisions on your behalf. If you are incapacitated, and a power of attorney who can make legal and financial decisions, otherwise the court will take over. It's called probate, and they'll begin taking over your finances. And let me tell you, probate takes a long time. One of the things that I was very happy about, it might sound bad that I'm going to say I'm happy about. Before my mom passed away, we didn't know she was going to pass away, but we just sat down one day and I said, "Listen, Mom, you've got to do a medical directive so that we know how to handle your medical issues, what you want us to do in case you come to that point and you can't make the decisions yourself." And also, we looked at her will and we redesigned it and we made sure that it was clean cut and that everybody was treated fairly. But it was that medical directive that really helped out because it told me what she wanted done. So when it came time for my mom and she was in the hospital, it happened very quickly. It happened I was so amazed because it happened 2 months after she had done the medical directive. She went into the hospital in December, the last week of December, and passed away within 1 week on January 1st. And I had the medical directive, so I sat down with the doctor because we discussed her condition, and we found that there wasn't really anything else that we could do for her because all of her organs were beginning to die. And she was in a lot of pain, and she had a tube stuck down her throat. And every time she would wake up, she would look at me, begging me to do something. So I sat down with the doctor and I said, listen, this is her medical directive and I think that we should follow it. And I want you to, per her medical directive, I want you to remove all of the tubes, put her into a room so that all of her friends and family can come and visit her. And that's what we did. And it was a peaceful passing away. But if I didn't have that medical directive and she didn't tell me exactly what she wanted done at the very end, because she did not want to suffer. She did not want to have the pain and agony of dying. So she passed away very peacefully. And all of her friends were there. They were telling her stories way into the night. A lady had made a quilt and put the quilt on her. So she passed away very peacefully. And I, as the administrator and the family member, knew exactly what she wanted from her medical directive. It made the whole process so much easier and less stressful because I knew what she wanted. And it was easy to talk to the doctor and to see exactly what the possibilities were. And the conversations were easygoing because we knew soon that she would be at peace. It's hard to watch anybody struggling to breathe or struggling to live. So make sure that you know who you identify a healthcare proxy. If you're not working at the moment, you have time to do this, okay? So make sure you know who your healthcare proxy is going to be, who can make the medical decisions on your behalf if you become incapacitated. It's a hard word to say, isn't it? And you may also want to sit down and have a conversation with your attorney and perhaps make a revocable living trust. This determines how your assets will be handled after you die, but it allows you to adjust or cancel the provisions you put in place at any point. If you fund the trust now and become incapacitated, your successor trustee can use the funds for your care. We know that this is a lot. I mean, I'm talking to you right now, and I know this is a lot to think about. But if you've got the time now, if you're not working full time, or if you're just laid off and you're collecting unemployment, you have time to think about these issues. And it's important that you think about. I know it's a hard thing to think about, but it's something you have to do. So you have to think about reassessing your financial issues, and you have to think about what happens to me if something should medically or physically or a death should happen to me. How have I prepared? You have the time now. You have perfectly good time to think about this. Even if you're single, you should be thinking about this. How are your assets going to be taken care of? How is your healthcare directive going to be accomplished? And who will do it for you? Who do you trust in doing that, in making those decisions for you? I know it can be hard to focus on everything. I know it's very difficult. Because the next thing that you need to think about is your retirement and savings plans. What have you done about your retirement plans? If you have a 401k plan, you're probably pretty good. But a lot of you don't have 401k plans, and you have done nothing about planning for your future or when you retire. As you grow old, and let me tell you, I'm telling you this from experience, time goes by fast. It zooms by. And pretty soon you're at that point where you need to retire, but you haven't done anything to retire with. Make sure that you look at your retirement plan. You've got time now. You're in a situation where you're not working full time. You might have been laid off, or you might have even lost your job. You have some time now to start looking at your financial priorities, your health and your retirement, and everything needs to be looked at now. You have time. What are your financial priorities for the future as we go forward? Things are going to pick up. Businesses are going to go back to work. Industries will begin reclaiming the spots that they used to be at before this pandemic took place. You will be able to work on your financial situation, but you need to plan. Right now, you have to plan for where you're at now and where you want to be. Where you're at now and where you want to be. That is the most important issue right now in this pandemic, is setting your financial priorities of your life. I know that's a conversation that you don't want to hear about, but it's something that you need to work on. And you've got the time. You have got the time. Sit down and plan. I tell you, this in the good book, it tells us that we have to be good stewards of our money, good stewards of our time, good stewards of our life forward. And that takes planning. Planning is vital to every single individual out there. Married, single, purple eater, I don't know who you are. But listen, planning is important. If you are in Dubai, plan. Sit down and write out your plan. By hand, not by computer, by hand. Because you think better when you are doing it by hand. Then you can put it on the computer if you want to. If you don't put it on paper, you're not going to go very far. You're going to forget about it. But if you do it by hand, you're going to be making some really good decisions on what to do for your financial future. Think about it, okay? Just don't continually say, woe is me. Say, okay, what am I going to do for me? What am I going to do to make my life better in the future? Now and into the future. That's what it's about. It's about taking responsibility and being proactive on our financial situation when it's in a downtime, and how we can succeed even greater when it becomes an uptime for us. I know it's hard to think about, and you dread thinking about it. Do it, because it's for your benefit, and it's for other people's benefits too. We can succeed if we plan. Get yourself a journal book and begin planning your financial future. Begin doing it today. Journalize what you want to do and being proactive to create a good business plan for yourself. Know what your income is, know what your expenses are, and know what you can cut out of there to make yourself even better financially. Whatever you save at the bottom line, put it into your emergency fund. Once you get to a certain point, start putting it into more of your retirement plan. Make sure that when you retire, you have enough cash sitting there that you can live on. Life is a plan, and that's what it's about. Listen, this is Mike Lodge. If you have any questions or comments, send me a text at 818-252-5682. Again, that's 818-252-5682. I'll talk with you very soon. Everybody go out. Have a great day. It's a beautiful sunny day. Let's write a plan. Bye.
Thank you for listening to the WBT with Michael Lodge. Join us again tomorrow as we explore more about business and taxes. Follow us on iHeartRadio and go to our podcast website at www.wbtpod.com and listen to all of our podcasts and read our blogs.
This podcast has been produced by Michael Lodge, fully focused on content.